used to stay loaded, a squeeze away from popping off just like a gun that's loaded. I felt
How's
that
it
life
going,
I had
everybody?
to
It is
promote it.
Boom Bap Recovery, where hip hop meets recovery. I am your host, Ivory Makes Music, Ignacio Flores, and I am an alcoholic. Grateful to be here with you guys with the flagship episode on my sober birthday. 4/4/22 is my sobriety date, and I am 3 years old today, which is why I wanted to record this video for you guys today and give you guys my experience, strength, and hope in this 3-part video starting today, where I'm going to give you guys my experience, what my alcoholism looked like. I'm going to give you guys the strength, what happened, and what life is like today. So we're going to be focused on my experience, how my alcoholism evolved throughout the decades, and how I ultimately hit a bottom, and what happened, and where I am today, and what it's like. So stick around. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe and comment down below if you have a sobriety date, what your experience is like, and I'll be sure to comment back. So we are live and direct from Los Angeles, California. As you guys can see from the cityscape behind me, I am born and raised in Pasadena, California. That is Southern California. Welcome wherever you are. My experience in alcoholism starts before I ever touched alcohol, before I ever had a drink. I come from a long line of alcoholics. I am Hispanic, Mexican, to be exact, and I come from families that like to work hard and we like to play hard. And I was surrounded by alcohol from as far back as I can remember. You know, at our birthday parties, there's more alcohol than any type of anything, really. Beer and alcohol has been, present and in Hispanics, parties and get-togethers and whatnot. And I knew from a very early age that alcohol was was bad and had implications and consequences. I'm the youngest of five, 3 older sisters and an older brother, and I'm the youngest. And it was a reality to me from a very early age that alcohol had its consequences in my life and had its fingerprints in my life and who I'd become. In that, my father was an alcoholic, a womanizer, and left us at a very early age. I was about 8 or 9 years old when my family split up, and I knew that he was an alcoholic, and that's part of the reason why he wasn't there in my life. And from an early age, I had a pit in my stomach and an aching in my heart, and a sort of obsession of the mind as to why I was feeling the way I was. So, my journey through alcoholism. I am 32 years old, and like I said, I'm celebrating my third birthday. I quit drinking when I was 29 years old, not through my own volition, but because of an experience that I went through and seemingly had to go through in order for me to uh, quit putting this poison in my body. So 3 years ago, I was drinking about a bottle to a bottle and a half of the cheapest vodka every single day. Um, I called it my Rite Aid special. If you don't know, Rite Aid is a store. It's a it's a pharmacy kind of store where you can buy all sorts of things, but people go there to refill prescriptions. I went for my medicine, which was Borsky vodka, Popov, Taka, and I can get a bottle, 750 milliliters, for less than $5, taxes included. And how did it get there? How did it get to me drinking a bottle to a bottle and a half every single day? Well, I'm the youngest of five, and I come from a Hispanic household. And in my experience, us Mexicans in particular, we like to play hard and we like to work hard. So um, drinking was always prevalent, and alcohol and alcoholism was prevalent in my life before I ever touched a drink. I come from a long line of drinkers, and my father was an alcoholic, and he was a womanizer, and he was an example to me of what not to be like. But I knew from an early age that alcohol was the reason why my parents weren't together, and that That's why my father wasn't around, and that caused significant trauma in my life. Seeing my mom struggle to raise us 5 kids, and I always had a hole in my heart, an aching for feeling whole, right? And I would take that out on my relationships and feeling anger and frustration as to why I feel like the way I did, right? Um, you know, I would I would lash out on my friends, and physically and verbally, and uh, it was a tough way to grow up, knowing that my father was absent and that he preferred to drink rather than to have a relationship with us. And when you're a kid, you don't know any better. You're just acting out on your feelings. That's not to say I didn't have a great childhood. My mom provided for us as best she could. I loved sports. I was very active in my school. I knew that education and extracurricular activities were important, and I was a good kid for the most part. But I still had that spiritual kind of aching in my heart. But I knew that I needed to not be like my father. So he was an example of what not to be like. And it worked. Self-sufficiency worked, not having a father around to kind of teach you things. I had to figure things out on my own. And oftentimes I took shortcuts, right? How to find ways of getting things, stealing or cheating, and needing doing what I needed to do to survive, essentially, or get the things that other kids didn't, other kids had, that their families provided for them. Not to say that was right, but I did what I needed to do, and oftentimes that was cutting corners. And I didn't drink up until right before college, right? And my first drink was the summer before going to college, and it hit me like a lightning storm. And it was the original Four Loco. I don't know how many of you guys out there remember the original Four Locos with all the caffeine and all the stuff that was getting a lot of people in trouble, was killing some people because they would have two or three. And yeah, it was quite a ride with just one. So people were having multiple, and going into, alcohol poisoning or wrecking, just it was mayhem. So they had to switch up the formula for those. But that was my first drink, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And like I said, taking shortcuts, alcohol was a shortcut in my life to for relief, to finally getting that relief, that spiritual relief that I was always looking for, that feeling whole again. That's what alcohol provided for me from the onset of my drinking. It made me feel worthy. It made me feel like I was okay, like the warm hug from a parental figure that you never had, right? That you always wanted. And I kept chasing it, right? My drinking was always abnormal from the very start. And I went to college, and just youth and luck. I skated by. I love school. I love learning to this day. But uh, I think just I would get by sticky situations by the skin of my ass, so to speak. And my alcoholism progressed. And I call it alcoholism even then because it was never normal drinking. I used to drink to get pretty smashed right away. But I got through college, and then that's when the consequences started happening. I had a trajectory of my life that I was planned in my head, right? And I never meted those expectations, and the more consequences that I had as a result of drinking, the more I needed to drink to cover up that shame and the remorse and the guilt, and the more the alcohol would drive me to do things that I normally wouldn't do, and I can get into those specifics in another video. But my alcoholism progressed quite rapidly. So let me fast forward to post-graduation, losing relationships, losing jobs, losing, my family kind of finding out how bad my drinking was, me coming up with a million excuses, and it being so obvious. Um, the 2006, 17, the world comes to a halt in the form of the coronavirus pandemic. And it was a quite the experience. The world shut down, quite frankly. People died, people lost loved ones, mass hysteria, mass disinformation, um, police killings, BLM, Donald Trump's first term. It was a recipe for disaster. And I needed it to happen the way it did in my life, for me to not be able to see my family, for just the not knowing and sheer fear of everything going on, and overwhelming, just you're at home, you have nothing better to do but to drink and kind of drown out not only what's happening around you, but the sickness and the trauma that was never dealt with in the first place. And that's what I did. My drinking got severe. And this disease is progressive, and it just spiraled out of control. And I can honestly tell you now that if the pandemic didn't happen the way it did for me, I'd probably still be out drinking. I'd probably be dead or in jail the way I was going. But what would have happened in the span of a decade or two or three, the rest of my life, I don't know how that would have turned out. The drinking happened, and it catalyzed in about 3 years of just absolute diabolical binge drinking. Like I said, I was drinking about a bottle to a bottle and a half a day. That would go on for maybe 6 or 7 days until my body just couldn't handle it anymore, and then 2 days of just sheer hangover. By the 3rd day, I start feeling normal again, and I would swear off, and then the obsession would kinda come back in, like, "You can drink a little bit, Ignacio," like, you kind of forget of how bad those hangovers were and all the shame. You just forget about it, and we'll get into that in another video. But my life just spiraled out of control. I was losing everything I had, and we'll get into all those details. But I hit a bottom on 4/4/22. Um, I I crossed that line. I crossed the line into full-blown alcohol addiction where I wasn't getting any relief anymore. It didn't provide any sort of comfort or relief at all. The first drink made the shakes go away, and then the rest of me drinking was just trying to chase that relief that never came, as many of you might have experienced. And I just kept chasing and chasing, and then I would drink just to hope that I would fall asleep, to end the noises in my head and the malevolent spirits about me that came for my soul. And we'll get into that in another video, what that dark experiences was like when I was going into severe withdrawal. But on 4/4/22, I had a panic attack. I thought I was dying. I thought I was having a heart attack, but I was just going through very severe withdrawals. I was completely lucid, even though I had maybe 2 bottles worth of vodka in my blood system. Um, I checked myself into the hospital I was born at, more dead than alive, with no health insurance. They treated me like crap, strapped me to an IV, and gave me some Ativan, which I now know is a benzodiazepine, which is ironic because the only 2 drugs on the planet that you can die from withdrawing from are benzodiazepines and alcohol. I had no idea what withdrawals were. I didn't know what delirium tremens were. I didn't know that you could die from this. I didn't know how severe my condition was until I heard the doctors and nurses laughing at me from another room, because they were just completely shocked that I was, first of all, talking and alive, because my blood alcohol was 500. They said I should be dead a couple times over, um, but I was completely lucid, just completely broken. I was completely destructed, um, just in shambles. Um, and from that day on, my life changed. I had to have been broken into that state in order for me to receive the grace that I can now understand is God or the universe. Something entered my life that day, an energy, a presence where I knew everything was going to be okay, and that I no longer had to drink. Um, and I gave it all up. I just surrendered that day. I I was licked, and my life changed. My life changed after that day. I was no longer alone. I felt the presence of the universe with me, and the specifics of that, another video. So stay tuned, because I'm gonna get into all of this. But that was my journey. That was my bottom. Almost dying, coming into the hospital where I was born at, 29 years prior, Huntington Hospital in Pasadena, California. And my relationship with alcohol, vodka, pop off, the cheapest stuff you can find. That's what I liked. And that obsession, right? That obsession to drink and keep on drinking after after that first drink. And even though you know it's bad for you, you just can't stop. So if you relate to any of this, like, comment your sobriety day, comment your experience, what you're going through, and I'm here to help. We're going to be talking hip hop, we're going to be talking recovery, and we're going to be talking life. I'm a sound engineer, I'm a music producer, and I'm a hip hop artist, and a lot of my music is dedicated towards recovery. I'm going to be posting a lot of stuff. We're going to be having people on the podcast. So stay tuned. If you're going through something, we're going to be talking about it all, the physical, the mental, the emotional, all of the experiences. So stay tuned. This is Boom Bap Recovery, episode number 1. It's 4/4, 2025, celebrating my third sober birthday. So wherever you are, peace, love, and light to you. I love you guys. Stay tuned for the next video.